Yeah, it was. It's definitely a shift in schedule alone. I made it a point to do a lot of training to prepare myself for this role with weapons and to get myself mainly comfortable using them, and that was the thing that I tried to do the most. In terms of schedule, it's very different. I'm very blessed at my job at How I Met Your Mother. We have a very nice schedule, and this too was very good. But we had a lot of stunts to do and a lot of fun things to explode. So it was very different.
I'd say too. First of all, Kobe is one of the best stunt people on the Avengers team. She did all her own jumping and flipping and shooting and stuff, and it was she's got that tomboy thing. You know what I'm talking about? That hot mom tomboy thing. And
there's also a website. Now there's a site. Also a website. Yeah.
That's gonna be a new website now.
Hot mom tomboys.
Yeah.
I kept trying to add frames to that shot of you flipping when he's shooting at you, so that people could see your face and know that it wasn't a stunt woman.
Yeah, that was fun to do.
Hi guys, Dan Devey from thecinemassource.com. Congratulations on the movie. It was absolutely amazing. You were talking earlier about the costumes. I'm curious, was there ever any costume envy, Clark, on set?
Clark? Well, I'm not going to lie. I think that Agent Coulson could rock some of Agent Romanoff's cat suits. No, that's being silly. You know, there's certain times of the morning when, yes, I do wish I had some of the kind of like, you know, Asgardian armor to walk around in, and God knows the antlers of doom that Loki has. But, you know, 13, 14 hours into the day, I'm quite pleased to be in my cool pressed Dolce & Gabbana suit.
Can I just say the inversion of all of what Clark just said? It takes 2 hours to get into Loki's outfit sometimes. And it's even more fun when you fight in it. You kind of, the sweat pools in the chest, and it's a really luxurious experience. But the thing I should say, I want to publicly salute Alex Byrne.
Yes.
Because she, you know, when you have to conceive of costumes of this scale, you're risking ridicule. I mean, these are monster costumes, and the last thing you want is for it to look silly or camp, and yet it has to look larger than life and heroic. And her work on it was amazing, and she worked with everybody in terms of like making them practical, and you could fight in them and jump in them and roll around, and my costume particularly does so much of the work for me, because Loki's silhouette is so incredibly menacing, and those clothes are so mean, and it's leather and metal and gold, and but there were days when I longed for the suit, the Dolce & Gabbana one.
We gave you one day.
That's true, yeah, in the museum. 3 hours in a nice suit.
Hi, Valentina Martelli from the Italian National Television. It's a little bit of a different question. In a few months, we're going to have the Olympic Games starting. I'm sure Tom is very happy, especially because he's done something about Shakespeare, right? But I would like to know, what do you think that your character would be good at competing in each of the sports, and in which sports you will see the superhero competing?
It's going to be a tough one for you.
Yeah. Javelin? The luge. Yeah, the luge, exactly.
Gosh.
Go ahead.
Oh, God. Javelin?
Yes.
I'd say javelin, yeah. Or maybe pole vault, if I was being creative.
I'm thinking like something in track and field. I'm thinking like, you know, I'm thinking running, long distance running, something like that.
I don't know what Coulson's event would
Basketball. You got to be on the basketball
be.
team.
Coulson's on the basketball team. Yes, Coulson's got a nasty three-point shot.
Jeremy, can you talk a little bit about preparing for this role? Did you read a lot of the comic books? Did you go into some kind of archery training? And didn't you get injured during the filming? Could you talk about that?
Yeah, it broke my heart. No, man, I stretched a lot. I prepared by stretching. Yeah, I did take some archery, but I realized very quickly that I couldn't really use it in the film. It ended up being, superhero type archery, which it's nice to know the technique behind it, but then I'm shooting behind my back and over my shoulder and using fake arrows and blah 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 blah. So I shot a few, and I think most of it again was the physical part is just stretching, so I don't get injured. Yeah, and you get injured, banged around every day when it's hand to hand stuff, and like Scarlett and I, we beat each other up pretty good. And that was, hey, that's fun. I love getting beat up by Scarlett. Wouldn't you?
For Tom, knowing how old school you are now regarding video games, are you equally as old school when it comes to comics?
Well, it's funny because in the UK, I grew up on these UK comics called the Beano and the Dandy. And most people's access to Marvel and DC is a later one, and it's through kind of cartoons and trading cards, I guess. But in terms of comics, the thing is, I was introduced to American comics really through the movies. It was Christopher Reeve's Superman was the first superhero I'd ever conceived of when I saw the movie when I was 6 or something, and I loved it. And it's really that film and also Tim Burton's Batman are kind of my first early superhero contacts.
Not having it in your DNA when you grew up, any trepidation about such an iconic character such as Loki?
I never get afraid of things, only get excited. It's just so much fun. It's such a great character. You just treat it, and never mind the iconography. I don't know. It's like playing an iconic Shakespearean character or something. It's just a privilege to be asked to do it. And with a character like Loki, he's got such a level of complexity and so many layers to him, so many things to explore. Especially when he is as well written as he was in this film by Joss. I mean, when I read it, I couldn't believe my luck. It was sort of, the film was called The Avengers, and yet Loki was almost on every page. And he's just, he'd taken what I sort of had built with Kenneth Branagh, and he'd taken it further, and it was as damaged and psychologically interesting as I hoped it would be, but it was also darker and funnier, and it demanded so much commitment. I just was so excited about it. So there was no trace of fear, just a huge amount of fun.
My question is for Joss. I was wondering if you could confirm for us exactly which alien race it was that Loki was working with in the film. Was that a race from the actual Marvel Comics or one that you created? And also I was curious which secondary characters, how do you decide which secondary characters from the other films to incorporate, for instance, Pepper Potts over, say, Betty Ross or something?
The alien race are the Chitauri, and or a version of them, because they are not one of the key races and they don't have a storied history, and really, that wasn't the point. I know this debate will go on long after I'm dead, so I'll just say it was the Kree Skrull race and really make everybody angry. But and then as far as the support groups go, my first instinct was not to have anybody from any of them, partially because you need to separate the characters from their support systems in order to create the isolation that you need for a team, put them in new environs, but also so that when they would go back to their own movies, they'd have something that the Avengers didn't have, that I wasn't sort of sucking the juice out of all the sequels that are going to be coming up. So, but Pepper, this was really Robert's thing. He pushed hard. He didn't want to be sort of crazy alone guy. He wanted to be crazy in a relationship guy, and he really thought Gwyneth would bring something great to the table, and we all thought so as well. But he's, I think, the one who convinced her to come and do it. And that made sense because he's been through 2 movies. He's had more of a journey, and he is in more of a stable place. But he can still be that and be completely isolated from the world in his giant tower that he built and owns.
So, hi, Joss. I was wondering, you mentioned something about like the sense of a spectacle, and then you were talking about like the characters. There's an interesting balance in this movie between the action and the characters and the conflicts they have. For me, what's interesting, the dynamics between Iron Man and Captain America. And then it seems that it's not only like a question of method, because one of the guys wants to attack immediately, the other one wants to prepare a plan. There's also some like kind of ideological things. When Iron Man says, we're not soldiers, it's just he's rejecting this like maybe army notion that the other guy has because he's an old-timer. So can you talk a little bit about how do you develop that part of the dynamics between these two characters, and if you were really willing to give it a little like touch of ideology, even if it's an entertaining movie?
Well, you have to write something that you believe in. Captain America was kind of my ground zero for this film, and the idea of someone who had been, in World War II, had seen people laying down their lives in the worst kind of circumstances, in a world where the idea of community and the idea of a man being somebody who is part of something as opposed to being isolated from or bigger than or more famous than it. It's a very different concept of manhood. And the way that it, in my opinion, has kind of devolved from Steve to Tony is kind of fascinating. I think you have to, obviously you're not going to stand around and speechify too much. I will a little bit. But the idea of the soldier, the idea of the person who's willing to lay down their life is very different than the idea of the superhero. And since I wanted to make, from the start, a war movie, I wanted to put these guys through more than they would be put through in a normal superhero movie. It was very important for me to build that concept and to have Tony reject that concept on every level so that, in the end, when he's really willing to make the sacrifice play, when he's willing to lay himself down on the wire, you get where he's come and how Steve has affected him.
We have time for just one last question.
Hi. Robert was saying that it wasn't fair that only Harry Dean Stanton could see Mark Ruffalo's naked. Well, it was a great surprise, but how did you come up with the idea to cast him in that role?
Harry Dean. We had this. The love scene was cut, but I needed to get Banner from the horror of what he had done and almost killing Scarlet or Natasha, I should say, and to a place where he was prepared to go back into that state. And I thought a lot about it, and I was like, he needs somebody who will just accept him. And Seamus, our DP, was actually shooting a documentary about Harry Dean and was spending a lot of time with him. And I sort of got him stuck in my head, and I was like, who's more accepting than Harry Dean Stanton? And so I got to write this weird little scene, which when I wrote it was not little, it was about 12 pages long. And I was like, oh, this is great. Bruce Banner falls into a Coen Brothers movie. And the fact that they even let me keep that concept and that we actually landed Harry Dean to play it was very exciting. But the idea was to put him in a slightly surreal situation with somebody who clearly had no problem with what he was, just to get him, just to make that little transition without milking it too much. And besides, to work with Harry Dean and to quiz him about Alien and the Missouri breaks, what a privilege.